Okay, thank you. All right, so anybody that I didn't meet, I'm Bruce Wexler from Denver, Colorado. This is my wife, Jackie. I met Earl on June 9th, 1973. And how do I know that? Because it was a week before my birthday, and we were starting college together at Drake University. And it was a summer program. And so Earl went back to Kansas City to go to his high school graduation. I stayed in Des Moines. It was funny, because Earl was this black kid from Kansas City, and I was a white Jewish kid from New York by way of Miami to Chicago, and now in Des Moines. And we had absolutely nothing in common, except we had everything in common. And we might not have been blood relatives, but Earl Hamilton was my brother in every single sense of that word. For 52 plus years, we argued about sports, we turned each other on to new music, we talked politics, we talked about the great things in our lives, we talked about the horrible things in our lives, but we just talked about it. And every phone call that we had ended the same way. It was always, love you, man. Didn't matter if it was me saying it or him. But every single call for 50-something years. When Earl died, the truth is a piece of my heart and a piece of my soul went with her. I mean, there's no getting around it. Our exploits and escapades as kids, they were the stuff of legends. And I'll tell you a few. But Earl was the master of one-word answers and a lot of grunts. A lot of times you hear, yeah, no, uh-huh. Uh-huh was 2 words, so I guess, that was a little more. But when Earl got to Drake, there were 2 things that he just loved. One was he brought a trumpet, and he was really good. And he had this really nice black leather coat. And he put, leather stuff on it all the time. And he would only take it out when it was something special, like he was going on a date or he was going to a function. And back at that time, Earl had the greatest fro in the world. And I learned about how to help him pick it out. And we were roommates for 3 years in college, and so we saw each other's good points, we saw each other's bad points, and despite that we stayed friends. And it was kind of cool. Earl, he really liked to draw, and he was really, really good at it. He just didn't want anybody to know about it. And when we were in school, he'd draw, I'd see it in the room and stuff. But he always asked me not to tell other people about it. And then recently, maybe over the last year or so, he started making it a little more public because he would do some sketches and he was putting them on Facebook and stuff like that, so people could see him. He was really, really good. Earl and I agreed about a lot of stuff. One of the things that we agreed on was that Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest basketball player in the history of the world, bar none. Michael, Kobe, LeBron, please. We also agreed that Marvin Gaye and Frank Sinatra were the 2 greatest male vocalists of the 20th century. And I mean, it was hilarious because when we met, I had no clue he liked Sinatra and he had no clue I liked Marvin. And so it kind of worked out. The other thing we agreed on, Earl really liked funk music. And we both agreed that it was Sly Stone, Sylvester Stone, from Sly and the Family Stone, who was really the godfather of funk. It wasn't George Clinton, it wasn't Bootsy, it was Sly. And that was it. And then during the 1973 World Series, we were living in the dorms. And the New York Mets were playing the Oakland A's in a series. And the guy playing center field for the Mets was Willie Mays. And if you haven't heard of Willie Mays, he was one of the 3, 4, 5 greatest baseball players ever. If you were going to start a team, starting your team with Willie Mays would be a really good idea. And he was incredibly famous at the time. And so we're watching a game, and I said, hey, Willie Mays is coming up. And only Earl could say this. Willie Mays? I thought he was dead. It was hilarious. And then, Earl was quiet and would keep stuff to himself. And he always tried not to laugh. And I would say stuff to try to make him laugh. And usually the best I would get at him before he would bust up, he'd look at me and go, that was trite, Webster. Trite, but cute. and that's who, that's kind of who he was. We had a lot of crazy stuff go on. One time, a freshman or sophomore year, we had the Jewish holidays come usually September and October. And the second of those holidays, Yom Kippur, we're supposed to fast for 24 hours. And so they had a Jewish student's house on campus. And Earl and I and another guy went there for dinner to break the fast. So now Earl's got this big ass fro. And so what I did was I went and I found a yarmulke, one of the skull caps. And I got some safety pins, bobby pins, and we pinned it onto Earl's head. And so we went there, because it was free food, we didn't have any money, we wanted to eat. And I said, like, come on, let's go. So we got there, and Earl was like, okay, what do I do? What do I say? And I said, you tell people you are Sephardic, like black Jews from Ethiopia, and just walk around and just say shalom, man, and you're good. And so that's what happened all night, and we ate like pigs, and then went back to the dorm. we had a couple of interesting things happen. Earl and I and another guy came up with this scheme. We were trying to raise some money. And we were in little old Des Moines, Iowa, and we're like, what could make us some money and not get us thrown in jail? And we realized that they did not sell Coors beer or Olympia beer in Omaha, but we could get it in Kansas City. So we had this one guy, we all pooled our money, and there was this one guy who lived there who was just rolling in the dough from Mississippi, and he helped bankroll us to go. So we rented a car, we drove from Des Moines to Kansas City, and we blew every penny that we had on buying a beer. We stuffed it in the trunk, we put it in the backseat, but we didn't have any money to get back home. So we had to call this guy from Mississippi at campus, and he wired us some money, but it was going through Western Union. This is like 1974, 1975. There's no instant, Venmo or, that kind of stuff. So it took 4 or 5 hours for the money to get from Des Moines to Kansas City. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? So we decided to go downtown. Now, you got to get this. I don't know if any of you have seen this picture, but at the time, I looked like an East German terrorist. Okay, I had, fairly long hair, I had a scruffy beard, and I was wearing a U.S. Army jacket. Earl came down, and he had a black leather coat, not the jacket, but a coat, and a big fro. We had another guy with us. If you ever saw Alice Cooper, the rock and roll guy, this guy looked like Alice Cooper's little brother. And then the third guy looked exactly like Arthur Fonzarelli on Happy Days, with the jacket, the hair, the whole shebang. So it's the four of us in this car. And we got nothing else to do. So we go downtown into Kansas City. What's the name of that big plaza that the Hallmark people did? You know what I'm talking about?
Center.
Yeah, so we go to this plaza, and we're minding our own business. We're just trying to hang out. We stepped 5 feet into the plaza, and we were surrounded by 20-something police, all with their guns on us, because they thought we were some big-time drug dealers. And they were mad because when they realized it was, and I had to tell them to shut up. Seriously, because I'm like, shut up, we're gonna shoot you. And he was chill, but it was not his nature. and so they let us up off of the ground, and the cops, we told them what the story was, and they said, go. They were so pissed because we blew their cover. So whoever the real druggy guys were knew the cops were waiting for them. And the guy said, get out of Kansas City, never come back. Earl says, I live here. No, I don't care. Get out of here. So we did, and eventually we made some significant money on it. We had another time. I was trying to make time with this one girl, and Earl and I were living in the dorms. Okay, and so I told him, it was Friday or Saturday night. We played basketball all day, and it was Friday or Saturday night, and I said, Earl, do not come back to the room before 10 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, Earl pounds on the door, opens the door, comes in with Eddie Barnes, whose name is Stick, and another guy, football player, Rodney Allen, and they just start laughing. I get up, I pick up a chair, and I throw it. Earl closes the door, the leg of the chair goes through the door, Earl opens the door and goes, hey Wex, that was the best shot you made all day. And he closed the door and walked away. And he was right. You know, when we were kids, we had a lot of deep conversations. One of the things we had talked about dying, you know, we were like 19, 20. What are you projecting into the future? What is it that you want? This is what Earl said he wanted. He said he did not want a big fancy funeral. He didn't want people crying. He wanted people to remember him and celebrate their times with him. And I totally get it. You know, Earl was fiercely loyal to a lot of things. He was fiercely loyal to the Kansas City Chiefs. He was fiercely loyal to the Kansas City Royals. He even liked the Oakland A's because he wouldn't admit it to anybody, but they broke his heart when they left Kansas City when he was a kid. And to a lesser degree, he was very loyal to the Washington Wizards. They were the Bullets when we were kids, and whatever they called that football team in Washington these days. And he always had, when they recalled their original name, he always had something to say about it. Earl had a sense of justice and fair play. Earl was fiercely proud of being a black man in the United States. Earl was fiercely proud of being a Q. Earl was fiercely proud of you being his daughter. And he made that abundantly clear many, many times. You know, he was a special guy. This could have been at the South Pole, and I would have been there. As long as I'm upright, you know, for Earl, I would have for sure been there. You know, there's never a good time for a funeral or a memorial service or anything like that. And there's always, you know, time, schedule, conflicts. You can make it, people can't. And so I know a lot of his Q brothers would have loved to have been here. And so one of the reasons we're videoing this is so that I can send that to them. And so Eddie Barnes, Stick, Sly Hughes, Yago, Eric, and then another mutual friend, Steve Siegel. This is for you guys too. It's not just for everybody here, but this way at least you can remember and share Earl too. You know, he was just a special guy. My kids, we have 4 kids, and I was telling Dominic and Glenda this. Earl came to Denver to visit one time. He was there for some business deal, and he was staying at they set him up at this rat trap hotel, and I went and rescued him. And he came to our house, and our kids came home one at a time, and our son was the first one in the door. And he came in, they had never met, they might have talked on the phone, but they never met. And my son walked in and he looked at him and said, "You're Uncle Earl, aren't you?" and they hit it off in a way that it was like they had known each other their whole lives. And I'm going to look and see if I forgot anything, because there was a couple other things I think I might have missed. Maybe not. I think that was. Oh no, I forgot about this. I apologize. Did any of you ever see Earl play basketball? Okay. So here's the thing. Well, you saw him when he was all this knee shot. Okay, when, he wasn't a really big guy, but Earl could do two things better than most people. One was jump, and that's how he got the nickname Hopper or Grasshopper, because he could jump out of the freaking gym. And the other thing was he had the weirdest shot in the world. Most people shoot and the ball kind of arcs and goes to the basket, to the hoop. Not Earl. Earl's shot went like this and somehow dropped it. And he was really good. He was, accurate as hell. How he did that, I don't know. So, I could be up here for a week and I wouldn't have all the Earl Hamilton stories that I got, but some I can't tell. There's kids here. But I don't know about you guys. I'm going to miss him. I do. I've made peace with the fact that Earl has passed away. I haven't made peace with the fact that I'm not going to talk. When somebody close to you dies, there's a hole in your heart, and that hole in your heart never heals. The pain intensity may go away a bit, but the hole is never going to pass. So I got one more hole in my heart. Thank you.